Hello and welcome to Inquisitorial Archive. My name is Kevin O'Rourke. I haven't done a video in a while, but there have been, and I keep every now and again making a video every 2 or 3 years and go like, oh yeah, I'm going to make more videos. I think I'll do 2 or 3 today and see where we go from there. Now, I want to talk about the Pathfinder 2nd Edition playtest. I'm not doing a full review because I've only had it a few weeks, and there's still some parts I'm still getting my head around. Generally, I like it. I have run a session over voice chat. I have run a few sessions around the table. And I'm currently running a play-by-post game. So I'm kind of seeing how, it's working from different angles. Because I've gotten into play-by-post a lot in the last close to about 2 years now. I just find them handy for my lifestyle. I've got a more rigid schedule with like breaks, so I sit down for a little while, do stuff, but I might talk about that in a different video. But I'm running so far from one Doomsday Dawn Snares, and if anything, if you want to look into any of the stuff for the playtest, what I appreciate is, although you could pre-order the books as I did, because yeah, I'm gonna really crack into these one way or the other, so I can get feedback, so that the finished product for 2nd edition is hopefully as good as possible. There's going to be changes. I've already done a little update, but I appreciate them doing a playtest. But the PDFs for the rulebook, an adventure book, and finally there's a bestiary. You can't get a physical copy of the bestiary, and just got maps. Bestiary, bestiary, people will say different ways. I don't care. But I've heard a lot of people talking about different things. People, just 1st edition. People have talked about that, but a lot of people have gone, oh, it's the same as, they're making too much like D&D, 5th Ed, which I can see some things, but that's just parallel evolution in some ways, like development. But I'd actually compare it more to Star Wars Saga Edition. I couldn't find my core rulebook. It was kind of like the Legacy era. You got 3 different factions. It's all gone now. I'll play what I want. But there's some similarities. Like there's some terminology floating around that are new. They have proficiencies. And that changes things up. I think that's one of the things that people actually like, oh, that's what's making it more like 5th. It's like, no, they're different beasts. It's choosing the right tool for the job. Some campaigns I'd use 5th Ed for, and some I'd use Pathfinder 2nd Ed when it comes out. And there's still going to be some campaigns where I'd probably just use Pathfinder 1st edition, really. If I want to do a mythic campaign, which I know never really took off, but for certain types of game, I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to use this. Fortunately, it's similar enough. If there's some of the stuff like the campaign rules from Ultimate Campaign, I've wanted to use that. It looks like it'll be similar enough to a little bit of conversion core. Then again, you can do that for 5th Ed as well. I'll talk about that. 5th Ed would be, I wouldn't be going to any as nitty gritty as the kingdom building, or I'd be going much lighter version if I was doing 5th Ed. But proficiencies. Proficiencies work is you have different levels of proficiency. You're untrained, which means your proficiency bonus is your level -2. You're trained, which means your level. Expert, level +1. I think it's master then, level +2. And then legendary, your level +3. It's like, okay, it's only a little bit more bonus, but the bonuses aren't as common. But that's only part of it, because it does actually matter in a few other ways. We'll get to that when we talk about the skill feats. Skill feats are interesting. But that's one thing that actually reminds me, like I said, of like, I wouldn't point towards 5th Ed just because, oh, there's proficiency there. No. I point towards Saga Edition. It's like, that's a lot more like Saga Edition. I like Saga Edition. I tried the Edge of the Empire. I was in the game with it, and it wasn't terrible. But I've got a little bit of a bugbear at this stage with Fantasy Flight games and most RPGs going like, hey, we've got these special dice. You need these special dice. Do you like the special dice? They have special symbols. And I had a bad first introduction with it, playing Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 3rd Edition, which some people might like. But I had a friend of mine, he bought the rulebook, he ran a session for it. Sorry for another time if I haven't told you already. Halfway through the session, he turned around and goes, you know what? Kevin, do you have the 2nd edition rulebook? Will we just play 2nd edition? He's like, yeah. But the bonuses are a lot smaller. And you've got your proficiencies. With the skill feats, I'll just go into skill feats. Every skill has uses you can use untrained. So they have recall knowledge, which you're like, oh, I want to see if I know something about the dragon. You don't need to be trained in Arcana to know about a dragon. It's going to help because you're going to get a bigger number. But there's other uses, like the recall knowledge on the base thing. So yeah, anybody can go, it's a troll fire. And I know there's some people who take the approach where, like, if it's something that's, oh, this should be common knowledge in the world, that, like, trolls and fires, like, yeah. And I can kind of see that approach, and I can take that with some games where it be case like, sure, troll fire, you'll hurt it, but if you don't roll, I don't want to punish a guy who doesn't know fancy, who hasn't played the games before. It's like, if you go, oh, trolls, fire is good against them, it's like, okay, but if you didn't actually roll and you're just going trolls fire, then I'm be like, okay, that's cool, but you didn't roll, so you haven't identified that this is not a common troll. This might act like, if it like, not, oh, I'm gonna change it because you made this. I'm just like, no. If you're assuming too much, I might kind of go, hold on a minute now. I'm just gonna talk with you about it. But it's like, this is it's an ash troll, so fire doesn't hurt it. You need to do whatever, because sometimes there's weird twists on them. And if somebody's making an assumption down the roll, I'm not going to correct them. But there's uses of skills that you can only do if you're trained in it. And then you have skill feats, because there's feats are broken up a bit more. With skill feats, they give you special uses of your skills that you can only use if you have the feat, and some of these skill feats have prerequisite that you get to certain levels of training. So a good example is there was a dwarven cleric of Torag in the game I was running, and he said, my guy does performance. He does like the drums and stuff. They're doing we're a traveling band who just got caught up in this adventure kind of type thing. Or, well, it's weird. But he took fascinating performance feat. So he got to make a performance check. And this is just one of those where you just need to be trained in it. And you take this feat, and now you have this additional use. And he's like, outside the combat, he can go like, oh, I'm making an amazing performance of some kind. I'm distracting the person. It's like, okay, they get distracted. But that one is one of those, because a lot of them they get better. Like, this is against, like, there's a DC based on the guy. They get better often enough if you have a higher training that's prerequisite for it. So for Fascinate, if you have expert training, the Fascinating performance, you can turn around. I should turn my head more this way. You can turn around, and with your fascinating performance, he could actually get 4 people now. There is a feat for medics, medics, people with medicine, where you've got combat healing. So you can actually, in the middle of combat, as an action, you can heal people. I'm just mindful. I'm looking at the little the sound thing going up and down. I haven't done this in a while. They've changed things up a bit, but that makes skills a little more like, if you're investing, if you're getting really good with your guy, it makes it a little bit more impressive for what you can do. You can do things outside your class, and some of these things, might seem a little more like things that do a class, like fascinating performance. I know there's a fascinating use for bards before, but I find it interesting because it lets you get further. Another cool thing is, although paladins and rangers and stuff, they're like, oh, and the barbarians, they're trained in, martial weapons and things. Fighter, that's his thing. What the fighter gets is, he's actually starts off as expert in proficiency with all simple and martial weapons, and he gets training into, like, uncommon weapons. There's a new term for exotic. So they got it broken up there, and that's pretty neat. I like that because it means that from day one, the fighter he's focused on his abilities. And I always liked in Pathfinder how they did things, how they made the fighter a bit more interesting. Not interesting, but like that. It just felt like in 3.5, you're a full base stat class. Here's some feats. There's 1 or 2, corner off you. But once they burn armor training, they have things like that. But like from level 1 in Pathfinder 2nd, like, you have this. Also, another cool thing fighter has, because they're the only one who starts with attacks of opportunity, which I know sounds odd. And initially I was like, wait, what? Paladins can get it like level 6 as a class feat. And that's how they break we'll get to class feats in a second. But attacks of opportunity for people doing things like drinking potions, or they're doing manipulating actions, or they're trying to move away and things. Not everyone can do attacks of opportunity now. Fighters start off with it, and some monsters seen a few of the bosses, they go like, well, this guy obviously they're started off a fighter, but the regular goons can't. And that might seem like, oh well, don't get my attacks early. But then again, you generally don't have to worry about the bad guys getting attacks early, so you can just move back, which is pretty cool. I like that option. Now you can kind of take a risk and go, oh, he probably doesn't have it. But if you're a little bit more worried of boss because he's more skilled, I said paladins can pick up later, but fighter just starts with it, so that's nice. Class feats. See, feats are broken up. They've got ancestry feats, class feats, and you got general feats, but kind of a subset of general feats is your skill feats, and skill feats have very specific ones for different skills, and then they've got some, this varies on the skill where. And then there's a few feats that they're not class skills, but most class feats, they're not skill feats. There are a few general ones. Toughness. Toughness has improved, where it's like, okay, you're going to get your level and additional hit points, but it also goes when you're making your resolve saves for you not for you not dying. Basically, death saves equivalent to 50. Like that's coming into a lot of systems now, rather than negative, what have you. So like I can live with that. It's fine. But if you're making those saves, this actually gives you a +1 bonus to those saves. So it's like, yeah, your toughness is actually giving you a little more, because toughness by itself, it's nice for extra hit points, but that's an improvement I like. It's like, this is, you're just that bit a little harder to kill as well. That side of the hit points, I appreciate that. But class feats are basically, if you're familiar with Star Wars Saga Edition, that'd be the best comparison for in some ways. Is, remember, you had your talent, you affected your talent trees that you invested in, you had whatever, and you got your abilities. Some have prerequisites, you must have the higher level thing. That's cool. They have that. More equivalent for Pathfinder is the rogue, investigator, slayer talents things. It's like that. And it goes on. Some of your classic abilities are put in there. They've given a little more variance. So you can pick up the stuff you go, oh yeah, no, that's something that's some paladins always want, and I really like that. The paladins have that. You can still pick it up. It's going to be there in some form or another, the old class ability. But if they kind of go, not every paladin has this, and this will just step a bit away from archetypes, because archetypes are a very cool but very big thing in Pathfinder. Now I think it'll just be, we'll get a supplement book, and the supplement book will have additional class feats for guys, which will let you customize things, but you're already choosing when you reach the appropriate level. I want this class feat, I want that class feat. So your class will tell you as you go along, you're getting this class feat or that class feat. It's pretty, it works out pretty well so far from what I've seen. There are a few classes who've been changed a lot more than others. Paladin is an odd one. Paladin strength is the most important stat. That's their key stat. All other classes have key stats. Charisma is important for their spell casting side, but it's not as apparent there anymore. But you can improve it. You can keep increasing it by taking certain class feats. So there is a class feat that lets you pick one of the domains your deity is associated with, and you get to use your spell points, which I think I'll cover in a minute. The spell points, you can spend it, and this is what you're using to get your lay on hands and things. But you can also go, oh well, there's a spell basically associated with the domain. I'm gonna spend my spell point, and I can cast that spell. So that means a paladin of one, there might be throwing odd spells because they're associated with a particular deity. Spell points, all of the spell casting classes have, and it's usually based off your key stat. And you can spend them to get very specific iconic spells to a degree. For druids, for example, you have different orders. There's like Order of the Plant, Order of like Wild, which is wild shaping. They focus on different things. They have additional restrictions. But what's very cool is for druid, as you're going through, they have, if you're, initially I was like, oh man, you can't take wild shape unless you're Order Wild. No, when I actually got in and started digging around, I was like, oh no, you can. It's just as a little part extra goes like, you get these abilities. Oh, and also if you're Ordered to Druid because you specialize in stuff, you get this extra thing. It's like, that's pretty neat. And some of the class feats constantly give you that are building upon these things often give you, you also have an extra spell point. But an example is for Druid, if you order of Leaf, you can spend your spell point. Cast Good Berries. You didn't have to use up a spell slot. You just go, I'm spending it. Boom, because that's what's built in there. For clerics, it's tied down to your domain, and you only get one domain starting off. You can get more using your class feats. That's another part where, like, as a cleric, one of the things I really like with cleric is they have changed things up with regards to because before in Pathfinder first edition and 3.5 and things, you chose your domain based off of God. And your domain had domain spells which let you do odd things with, like, oh, I'm a cleric of a magic deity, so I can cast Identify. That was one of the ones I really liked, because although it was second level with a cleric of the magic domain, you could use your divine focus. You didn't need your 100 gold piece pearl, which adds up after a while. So I like playing a cleric with the magic domain if there's a magic god I liked, because then it's like, oh, we're on the road for how many days? Okay, I'm going to be slowly identifying, but it's saving us 100 gold pieces each time, because I'm not having to get that pearl. It takes me time because I need so much to prepare. But now what's good, it's not tied to your domain. Although you have the spell point thing where you have a specific spell, you can use your spell points for depending on your domain. Your deity adds spells to the cleric spell list effectively for you, which is really nice, because Saranre, who's a fire god, like a sun god, you get to fire them and stuff, you get Burning Hands and Fireball onto your cleric spell list. So I find it really nice that you can have a cleric running around and tossing out Fireball, tossing out Burning Hands. That's pretty cool as far as I'm concerned. But that's because it suits their deity. And if you're a cleric of Nethys, who's magic god, he has magic missiles. But if you had another magic god, they don't have the same thing. They've got, like, there's a list of different spells stuff they have. It's a little bit more restrictive on, like, what deity you can get assigned to. They have, like, it wasn't before, it was like you could be one step away. So if you're a cleric of Torah, you could be lawful neutral, lawful good, or neutral good, because he was a lawful god. Now with him, they specifically specify lawful neutral or lawful good. No more neutral good clerics, which is a little bit like, okay, that's a bit odd. But generally, I like that a little bit. Like, they're bringing the gods of the setting more into it. But if you're using this for a Forgotten Realms game, if you're using this for an Eberron game, whatever, you can modify it up. The GM might just go, I'm just going to file off the name of this god and go, that's a summer Pokemon, I'm going to take his spell list for this guy or whatever. Yeah, it works. Now, you might not go Nethys, Mistra, they're a little bit different. You might change it, or might just go, like, it's close enough, I'm not going to change things up too much. Depends on what you want to effort you're going to put in there. But they're bringing the setting in, because there's very setting neutral. All they have was just, once more, the cleric said, like, here's the name of the gods. Very little, like half a page. That was it for the gods. They left out. They're bringing in a bit more, but it still works perfectly well as a system that is setting neutral, because there's not that much there. There's a bit there. It's not that much. But it's really interesting with clerics as well, because they get channel energy, which shows got before, which was like, oh, you do so many d6, and you can affect the living or dead. If you go, if it's positive, it heals living, it hurts the undead. If it's negative, flip it. They have it like, oh, your deity's action will tell you if it is, positive or negative you do. But one of the cool things is, it's not the burst anymore now. Wait, there's a part onto that. There's not a burst on it anymore. But what you end up getting, I'm just going to adjust my mic. What you end up getting is this way the spells work sometimes. It's coming to economy of actions again in a minute. When you cast heal has like, oh, we cast it, you heal a guy. And it does like 1d8 or 1d6. I think it's 1d8 plus your key stat modifier. So for cleric, it's going to be your wisdom. And that's how much you heal. But it takes an action to cast that. You can choose to take higher numbers of actions. If you take 3 actions, which is 3 actions in a turn, instead of just healing one guy, the wave positive energy, if you're doing positive energy, hits everyone within 30 foot. So if you're doing positive, all the living within 30 foot are going to get healed. I think it's like 2d8 plus your casting stat modifier. It's pretty good. Then it's also hitting the undead, which is something you've seen some people house rule. And What this ends up doing is if you're fighting loads on undead, it's great because you just heal everybody in the party. It took your whole turn, but you heal everyone a good chunk, and you're after hitting all the undead. Really nice. But it took your whole turn. So it took your spell slots and stuff like that. Clerics, you have as well as your spell point pool, which is do at your domain. They have an additional pool for your channel energy because it's a class feature which is based off. I think it's based off your charisma modifier because they always had like charisma as a secondary important thing with them. So that's pretty nice. But this means like if you want to make a cleric who focus on, I am focused on healing. You can have like my spell slots I've prepared. I've prepared a bunch of healing, and then I've got my domain. I'm not sure if any domains have even the healing domain. It doesn't give you heal, but I think it gives you some that will boost. You can cast as a reaction. You spend your Pokemon to boost it further the amount you heal. Doesn't boost the damage though, even though the rest will be damaging it. If you're worried about, oh, but what if I'm fighting, living enemies? I don't want to heal them. There is a class feat called selective channeling, which based off one from the first edition, where it's like you can exclude a certain number of people. So that's nice. That it's opening things up. I'll kind of move on to the economy of actions now. All characters now 3 actions in your turn. You also have a reaction, which that's what the fighter's using for attacks of opportunity. You can use your reaction deck. There's some spells that like reaction sorts. There's specific triggers. If this, then you can use this. The economy works out with your 3 feats, with your 3 actions. You can do a number of things, casting spells. Like I said, that some of the spells go, if you spend more actions, you make it better. I had one of my players for the first time be happy making a level 1 summoner because it's like, okay, it took his 3 actions, but he's done by the end of his go. The thing was summoned, and in future time he'd spend an action to direct it to do things. But it's also that he was able to summon a Sturge at level 1, and it sticks around for a minute, as opposed to First Dead and 3.5. It's like, oh yeah, it'll stick around for a round. It's like, wow, that was totally worth my entire round. So he was pretty happy just to be like, I've summoned a Sturge. It only gets 2 actions, but I can have it go, attack that guy, start draining his blood. Cool. But with 3 actions, you can just attack 3 times if you don't have to move. If the guy's right in front of you, Dragon Slayer is like, attack. But the second attack takes a -5 penalty, and the third attack takes a -10. But you can do this from level 1. So you guys can swing the sword. Obviously, the high level guy's going to be doing better. You're still adding your stats and things. You get your proficiency bonus, your stat, and sometimes your weapon's better to add on. But usually, starting off, you're not getting that. But it works out pretty well. Even if the last attack is going to fail, it probably would -10. There are some enemies that are just either much lower level than you, or it's like an ooze. Oozes generally have very low ACs. That works out pretty well. The ooze having a low AC, the 3 attacks can really work in your favor. Or you're doing things like, we're flanking him, so he's flat-footed, he's got a -2 to his AC. Or your guy's just really good. There are traits on weapons. If the weapon is agile, like a dagger or I think a rapier or something, it's very good for lots of quick attacks. So it goes, the penalty for the second attack is going to be -4 instead of -5. The penalty for the third attack is going to be -8 instead of -10. There are some ones like the great axe, which is sweeping, where if you're making your second attack, but it's not against the same guy because you're doing a big sweeping arcane attack, you reduce the penalty by 1, which can make the difference. And generally, a lot of my players have really liked it more than I expected, because as one of the players said, he said, this is clear. I know I have 3 actions. It's not, I have a standard action, I have a move action, I have a swift action, and I have, he's like, no, I have 3 actions. This ability takes this action. They have a funny little like diamond shape that goes, this is 1 action. They've kind of got half of another one onto it for like 2 as a quick way to do it. As a quick way to just reference, like, oh yeah, this ability does this action, does this. So it's a very quick way to reference it. A little bit of problem with that is for people who don't have great vision, which I'm more mindful of because I regularly play with someone who doesn't have great vision. So him trying to look through the book is like, this isn't, it's a little bit like, this is a bit blurry. Like, so, and now it's hard for him to read stuff anyway sometimes, but it's just one of those things like being mindful of. And it's one of those things when you start thinking about that for games, when you start putting these things. That's why I appreciate when I noticed in like Take It Right, even though I'm not colorblind, everything's based off color. And I was, oh, wait, all the there are little symbols with the colors. So if you're colorblind, you can still play. Because how much is like, oh, this is a great game. It's like, oh, it's all colors, I can't play. Or, oh, I have, my vision isn't great, I can't read this. So hopefully, I'm gonna give them feedback to playtest and say like, can you, for like people who buy the playtest, like I'm not expecting to reprint the book, but for people who buy the PDF, can you have an option for just to say, replace that symbol with like 1 action, 2 actions? Most people won't need it, but people don't want to, make it more accessible to people. Can be good. Which my players really like the actions. That's something that really, as far as more, it's like, oh no, I've got like these actions, I can do these things. And that worked out. The critical success and failure, essentially, so your critical hits, your critical failures, things are different now. In Pathfinder, a nat 20 is a critical success now. And as much as I've had, because I've had to point out, people was like, it's not in previous ones. Some people, and even in a lot of games, people go like, oh, it's a nat 20, it's amazing. Yeah, no, you're listening to a lot of podcasts where they go, a nat 20, of course you must have. It's like, well, no, even if you get nat 20, it's like, oh, it's a critical success. You want to jump up and punch the sun, and nat 20 is still not going to do that. But there are times when like, oh, critical success is going to get information, getting extra things. That's one way of getting critical success or failure, which a nat 20 with the attack, with your melee attack, you're getting the extra damage, which I'll get to in a second. But there's another way. If you beat the difficulty by 10, so if the difficulty is 15, you get a 25, that is also a crit. If you fail by 10, that's critical failure. So what this ends up doing is that fighter having expert training rather than proficiency, merely proficient training. At +1 means he's more likely to be in crits more regularly. To people who are more skilled in it, you can still do it, but to people who are better, going to get more. Now, not everything has a critical success or failure stage. Spells will say, oh, if they get, like, sometimes they'll go like, oh, like, reflex save for half would have been low class ones. Like, but if you get a critical success, you've completely avoided the damage. So that's like, nice, very cool. If you get a critical failure, they might actually go like, no, you're going to take extra damage. You just like completely dove the wrong way and you've gone closer to the center of that fireball or whatever. Just hasn't gone out. Luck has gone against you this time with skill. So that ends up being very interesting because the guys who are better at this, there's the random luck element, your 1s and your 20s, but there's also passing or failing by 10. So that's like, you've always got the random luck chance, but the more skilled warrior is going to get there further. The difference between, because it invites comparison and people to compare the playing times with 5th Ed, is there's more wheels, there's more components, so you can adjust your character a bit more with Pathfinder the Pathfinder 2nd Edition playtest, what I've seen. There's still very good stuff. I should do a video on 5th Ed D&D, even though loads of people have seen that. It's been out for many years. I've only in the last kind of year started playing it. I like it, but different beast completely. You've got all your parts, your components. Some of the classes have been slightly changed. Alchemist in the core book, and I'll admit, Alchemist, I think they need to reword things because I was running my play post and one of the players was like, I don't know, this is confusing. It's actually more expensive for me to make things than it's for you to use them. I was like, no, that can't be what I mean, because it literally would be a case of like, you'd be better off going to a shop, buying from an NPC Alchemist or Alchemist Fire than make it yourself. The way we believe it works out is you actually make it for free, because it doesn't specify, oh, you make it for free. And I think that's what the words are missing, because you can kind of, I prefer when RPG but points out that even though it's going to add a few pages on as it goes on, you can point out, you need to go to this section to look at this thing. Because if it's referencing it, sometimes they reference stuff without, and it's not, this isn't the only book guilty of it, but it's like, you can point out things. I have not read this whole book. I'm not going to, probably not going to read the whole book. I'm just discovering as I go. That's how I want to run the playtest. I want to get an idea. I want to be able to get feedback. But with the movie scores, like, okay, you've spent your point, you've spent your resonance point to make this, and you can make a batch of them. but it doesn't specify anything with cost. But as I determined, this must mean that your resonance points is a cost, especially because your alchemist fire, whatever you made, it's only lasts for a day. It's a short shelf life. It's not real alchemist fire. Real alchemist fire, it's there for a month. It's fine. This is, discount off-brand stuff you've made, but it works perfectly well for the day. So it's like short shelf life, but it works. Like, so they're like, oh, okay, they're like, oh, this is really cool. Resonance is an odd thing they put in because obviously a lot of people, depending on your character, do use resonance as a dump stat. It's not a resonance, your charisma is a dump stat, which charisma is useful regardless, but this is something just to up it a little bit. Your charisma affect your resonance. Your resonance is your level plus your charisma modifier. So if you don't have great resonance, it's not the end of the world anyway, but it's pretty handy. If you have a magic sword, that's using up one of your resonance. So it actually reminds me a little bit of Shadowrun and things like that. You have your one resonance used for that. If you drink a potion, that's another resonance use. Now you get them all back at the start of the day, but it means that it doesn't matter if you've gotten yourself a shit ton of money. You're not sitting there going like, oh, we're going to go through next. It's like, here, let me chug so many potions. I've just drunk 10 potions of healing. It doesn't matter what to do. I've got stuff. No, it's doesn't work like that. You run out of resonance, and then there's something called resonance burn, which I should have looked up before I actually put in the video because we haven't let you. We forgot about it in one session. We forgot about the resonance burn, and we all remembered after the session. And like, oh man, you drank all of the potions the party found. They should have not have worked. That's why I think the party should have put. They obviously should have meant to pull back because, yeah. But there is. It seems fine. Like I don't have a problem with it. It's to make because you can say, oh, but my character's based on not based off. I don't worry about it. Well, you can say the same thing about dexterity, except for dexterity still affecting your AC. Armor, very interesting what they're doing with that there. Your armor is affecting your touch AC if it's the heavier ones as well, a little bit. But if you're proficient with your armor, you get your proficiency bonus using the armor, which is very cool because I like the idea of like a 10th level fighter in his full plate is going to have a much better AC than a first level fighter who looked down and found +1 full plate. It's like, no. He's better than you. That is down to skill. So there's a little more focus on your character's skill than first edition. I like that. Magic, shields and relation. Shields are odd. Shields, and this is one thing I know people are a little bit more contentious about. You can raise your shield, as they call it. Takes an action. Unless you're a fighter, in which case you can do there's a reaction if you take this feat. So if you're going to play a fighter and you want to use shield, take this because it's a reaction, so you can do your 3 attacks. But if you're paladin, you might go like, attack twice, I raise my shield. If you raise your shield, then you get your bonus to AC, which affects both, your regular AC and your touch AC. But the very nice part where this comes in is like, if you've raised your shield and attack it, you can basically try and take it on the shield properly. So you work out the damage. You go, oh, I'm doing this. You have to do it before you work out the damage. Work out the damage. You take off the hardness of the shield. So wooden shield or steel shield is going to be different. Adamantine shield is going to be different as well. If it beats the hardness, it's going to give it dents. It gets 2 dents, it's broken, needs to be repaired. It's not completely gone, but needs to be repaired, which is where like one of those skill features, one for like you're really good at making repairs, is going to take you like 10 minutes instead of an hour. That's actually going to be useful. I can see fighters going like, I've got a few of these. I haven't checked, but I hope that like paladins and other classes, much like with the attack for opportunity, hope they can pick it up as a class skill as they level up. But that means you're actually taking the damage on the shield. And the shield might get destroyed, but that happens in fights. Like, it gets splintered, it gets, cleft in twain, but it was the shield who took it, not you. So I can totally see adventures now be like, oh, I got my shield, boom, got messed up. It's like, well, action drawn out. I've got a shield. I've got a shield on my back because this happens the whole time. That's pretty neat. Because I remember when I mentioned to a friend of mine, he was like, they're after nerf and fighters, and I expect fighters can get it for free. And it's not just to get, because it was just to get the AC bonus. You have to spend actions. Like, come on. It's like, oh no, this can actually save you a bunch of hit points. That's pretty cool. So the armor works out pretty well. The magic armor, the base like +1 is a little more interesting because it's not just it's going to increase your AC. increases both ACs, the target AC and the regular AC. It's also giving you bonus to all your saves. So that's nice. Magic weapons, far more, because before it's like, oh, I got a +1 sword, +1 to hidden damage. It's like, well, I focus on this one, so I'm not going to use that. You get your +1 to hidden damage, but you also have, you're going like, oh, in case I fight a ghost or something. It's like, okay, but it's nice. A lot more interesting in second edition, because now it's like, oh, you got your +1 to hit, because it's a +1 weapon, but you don't get +1 damage. You get +1 dice of damage. So if it is a great axe, +1 to hit, and an additional d12 damage. So even if it's like, oh man, I'm focused on this up, but I'm going to use this axe because it's like amazing until I can get my hands on it. It's like, that's cool. Like that. Sorcerers. Probably, unless I meander off talking about these, because I'm looking, we're almost on 40 minutes now. Sorcerers, very cool what they've done there. They're not all arcane casters. Sorcerers end up with what type of caster they are based on their bloodline. If you have the celestial or angelic bloodline, you're a divine spellcaster, which means you're drawing from the same spell list as a cleric. So you can actually be the party healer. If you have the Fey bloodline, because you got Fey ancestry and stuff, you draw from the primal spell list, same as the druid. There's another one for the cult, because they have like 4 different schools now. They've got a cult. The cult was coming in with a cult adventures book where they had psychic, and they haven't gone as crazy with it, but they've put it in their bard, and some of the bloodline sorcerer are the only ones that have it initially. They don't have any of the emotion component, all of the other stuff which they were doing. I think they do mention sometimes there's other components. It's like if we get around doing the psyker class, it's a psychic class someday, we might, they might bring that in. They've left the door open there, but they have an occult spellcasting class there, which is cool. But the sorcerer, if you are I think it's the aberrant bloodline, uses the spell list. So if you've got there's weird eldritch horror stuff coming in there, you're using the cult spell list. If you have the dragon type, it's going to be arcane. That's one of the class ones, like, oh my, related to dragon, somehow the influence of dragon coming in there. And you got like imperial as another arcane one. So you have options there, and that I really like the option, the possibility, shall we say. I like the possibility that you can turn around and go, well, I really want to play a sorcerer, but we need somebody who's here. So actually, I don't mind my bloodline too much, so I'm going to take Fey, so I can do a little bit of healing because heal still comes up on the primal spell list, or I'm going to take angelic and I'm actually going to be quite easy. That's nice, and that means you could have 2 sorcerers in the same party, and their power comes from some ancestors. They've got completely different ancestors. Why are they drawing from the same spell list? You still get bonus spells depending on your bloodline, but it's the spell list you're drawing from. That is really cool. That's something I really like. Hope to see more things like that. The wizard, briefly touch on. Thank God they changed up the arcane focus, because in first ed you had, if your arcane focus, which is a ring or a wand or whatever, or a weapon, if that's lost, you have to make a really difficult check to still be able to cast your spells, and it's a pain to replace. Or you can have your armor point with just hit points get messed up. They've made that a bit easier, because it does end up kind of going like, I could take this really cool focus, but if it gets destroyed, then I'm screwed. So there's a temptation to go for it. And I've done it myself. It's like, I'm just taking a ring. A ring is my thing, or an amulet, because if it's a sword or something or whatever, somebody might disarm you. Somebody might pickpocket. If it's on your ring or a finger on your ring, sure, you could have a really good pickpocket. It's a lot more difficult. And yeah, if you're just like, oh, it's a staff, somebody can disarm you a little bit easier, or it's whatever. But now he's like, oh, you have it, you pick it at the start of the day. But like Starfinder once more, you have like the spell cache of Starfinder, you pick it at the start of the day when you're preparing your spells, and you go, this is my focus for a moment, and you get to called drain focus, which is you go, oh, if you cast a spell already, In the day, you can do Drain Focus, and you can recast that spell without using a spell slot. So it's like, oh man, I did Featherfall earlier, but now we're falling again. I don't have it prepared. You go like, I'm going to use my Drain Focus. Boom, Featherfall, done. Very nice. There are no restricted skills anymore. They do have, like, you've got your specialization skill, but there's no restricted skill, which a little bit few minds about, but it did end up, you often end up kind of going like, what ones am I going to restrict myself on? I'm going to restrict myself on Necromancy because there's a bunch of evil spells. I like Raven Feedment, but I'm not going to be doing Animate Dead. There's a paladin in the party. I mean, probably wouldn't do it anyway. Enchantment, a bit iffy about enchantment stuff anyway. Or I'm not going to. You know, you're looking at like, what can I just not use? Like one way, like a Necromancy often with this because like that's undead. Or unless you're going like, yeah, I'm going to Necromancy. It's going to be amazing. Well, you're picking spells now. It's just like, no, you don't have a restricted skill. You get bonuses. So you're going, well, what about Universalist? It's still there. What Universalist gets as bonuses, they get an additional wizard feat at level 1. Let them choose some stuff. And the Drain Focus, it's not just, you can do a spell. It's for every spell level, you have a different spell. Like Drain Focus, you can cast Drain Focus for each level. So if you've got a 5th level wizard and you got, your first, your third, your first, second, your third level spells, you can do Drain Focus once in the day for each of those. So that's pretty nice. It's a nice, neat little way of tying it up. And I like that. That really, because I was worried they were going to get rid of Universalist completely. And you do have, once more, the class feats build upon your initial signal. You can just kind of go, I am a conjuration guy, and I've taken some stuff and that builds in. But you can keep taking class feats that are restricted to or give you extra bonuses for that particular thing, so you can keep going. I've taken Conjurationist. Universalist does a thing when it gets certain levels, like, yeah, you can basically, you're used to kind of, you're a dilettante to a degree. You've bounced around some of the different schools, so you can have at the start day you pick I think it's at the start day you pick one of the bonuses that one of the schools gets, and you can use it because you're not as focused. Now the higher level stuff is still gone further away. Yeah, but I just kind of look, it's like, yeah, some of the spells and stuff have changed up. One of the things that I'm going to apply, because you can give feedback to the playtest, they've got surveys and things, and they're opening up more general ones. So far, it's been like just focusing on the first adventure, booking back places. And so it's bugged me because for years, have you ever heard the phrase something like, but Kevin, I'm a 3rd level cleric. Why can't I cast a 3rd level cleric spell when somebody finds a really cool spell? It's like, this will get us out of the problem tomorrow. I just need to sleep and prepare. It's like, no. Even people who are experienced at the game, classes and spells should not both be called levels. One of them, like your spells, could be called tiers or whatever. Them both being said, because if you don't know anything about spellcasting in the game, because some people just go, I've just played fighters, I'm going to branch out, because now they're getting fused, or somebody coming in new. And yes, once you know it, but it's a case like, it makes complete it makes complete sense to you why it would be confusing for somebody new going, I'm a 3rd level cleric. Why can't I cast it? It's a 3rd level cleric spell. So I'm going to give feedback on that, and I hope they change that. It really, I've seen it. I've been playing 3.5 Pathfinder for so long. So many times I've seen that point of confusion come up. It's like, and this isn't it's not a big in-world. It's like you still can reference like a little Skyrim. Oh, people sometimes call them spells. I'll probably still call them spells sometimes as well. But if you're anyway interested, we can't get the book anymore, although we should have the new one coming out soon. Well, we should have the actual playtest coming out something next year or something like that. But the PDFs are these. PDFs are BC. BCR is actually 125 pages long, and they're within like 3 or 4 monsters on each page. Like they're pretty lean because, and it's not just monsters for this. They have a general stock of monsters. You probably find almost all the monsters you find in the Bestiary 1 from 1st edition or something like that. They have them in this bestiary, 125 pages. I think it's like 200 monsters or something finished, because they have like hazards like quicksand and something as well. Core rule book for the playtest, the adventure, the bestiary. They've got some PDFs and maps. All of the PDFs you can download for free. Now they make you log into their website and they put a watermark on it in order to get like, oh, this is your, it's like, oh, the order for blah, blah, blah. It's like, I'm not sure why they did that. That part doesn't. It's like, I have to log in. I have to, because I can see it like, oh, I'll go click and boom. It's like, why is it watermarked? It's free to PDF. But they have maybe some technical restriction because of the website or something. But if you're interested and you want to find out more, you can just download the PDFs. You can have a look at them. I got these because I knew it would be GMing, and not everyone's gonna like. Some of the people might have brought a laptop, whatever. Not everybody can, and sometimes it's not convenient because we're a little bit into it, and you think you know your character. I was like, oh wait, how does this work? I want to check out the book, so I got the book. The adventure, very odd. Let's speak briefly about the adventure. Which it's odd. It starts a little bit before the first, kind of the first, like they did like Falcon's Hollow stuff, but Rise of the Runorts, the first adventure path they were doing, the first like proper, like not the demi adventure path, but like not no disrespect to Falcon's Hollow or anything. It starts a week before Rise of the Runorts. Rise of the Runorts, you're all going to the Swallowtails Festival. It's a week before that, and someone who's going to Swallowtails Festival is like, yeah, I got robbed. Give me a hand to see. You make your characters for that, and then they go off and they go, hey, now make a character that's slightly higher level. And they don't have pre-generated characters, because we don't want pre-generated characters. We don't want to just get people who's like, oh yeah, everyone took those characters. Because yeah, I get that. They want a proper playtest. They want feedback. If there's something broken and not working or overpowered at one of the classes, they need to know that. So you can go off. Sorry. So you can get the PDF at first. You start first out, guys. Then you go off several years later. This is a few years back now. Several years later, you're doing this, and they kind of give nods for little GM if you run the adventure paths. It goes, oh, this is happening in this area. This adventure path thing going on. So you could have like cameos of their old characters, walking past in between these, arguing about whatever. So it's like, okay, that's neat. But it moves things along, and you come back. It's almost like you're doing cutaways, and you see these other characters, and you come back to your main characters. The guys you make for the first adventure, they're the guys who continue on. They're the main characters you cutaways, because they want to test the features. But you could run it doing whatever. It required a little bit of work to run another adventure, obviously, because the DCs are going to be a little bit different. But yeah, overall, I'm very optimistic. After running the first adventure a few times, ran the second adventure as well, and talking about with people, there's new stuff coming the whole time. It is dense. That's one of the things. It's very dense. There's a lot in it. There's a lot. Like, I remember when I was looking at the class, I was like, I'm overwhelmed. There's a lot of stuff here. Where do I begin? But once you start getting your head around it, like I was getting that with Starfinder as well. Once you get your head around it, it's fine. But you need that little bit of a start. Once it starts coming together, you start unraveling it. There's a lot of options there. So a lot of moving parts they can put in, but you can like replace it, very customizable with your character. Very cool. Paladin code. Last thing, hopefully. The Paladin code is very good. It has a Pathfinder is always good for like, here's your Paladin code. Now they've got it as a hierarchy. It's like Asimov's laws. Like, first one's like, you're not supposed to do evil stuff. And it goes down towards the end. It's like, okay, like some of the last was like, you're not supposed to lie. But then it goes into, you can break lower level stuff for higher level stuff. Because I had a discussion with the players like, oh, I was watching this video, and I actually read things like, yeah, that works. That works. That's what works fine for me. You can turn around and go like, if somebody shows up and goes, I'm looking for some runaway orphans, I'm going to murder them. Are they hiding out in your house by any chance? Or have you seen which way they went? And you can stand there and go, our Paladin, of course I don't lie. I haven't seen them. While you're like hiding them. It's like, because they're innocents, you're protecting them. You can break lower level stuff if it's to maintain your higher level stuff. and they have oaths built in as class feats. And you get to turn around and go, okay, I've got this oath. It adjusts. It usually adds like an extra bottom line. Whereas like you, like the oath against fiends, like you have to oppose like demons and devils and things like that. If you have a reasonable chance to stop them. It's not you're going like, I'm level 3. Oh, there's a pit fiend. It does not go, oh, there's a demon, you need to kill it. It's you do not have a reasonable chance at level 3 to kill a pit fiend. You might want to alert somebody who can, but you don't have to go charging off to fight that pit fiend. For the oath against undead, is like, oh yeah, destroy them. Now it does have little, they've got nicely on little extra claws kind of going like, you have to destroy them, except it does go for the dead. If you for the demons, like if you're in the unlikely event you find a demon who somehow has been through weird circumstances is now good, yeah, you don't need to murder them. You know, it's about them being evil, horrible fiends and monsters, not about them somehow becoming good. For his undead, if you come across an undead, you need to deal with it, which is usually you're killing it. But if it's a case like I have unfinished business, I need to make sure, you know, my death is avenged because I was murdered, you can resolve that by just finishing their unfinished business. It doesn't insist you go, no, you're undead, I'm murdering you, I don't care. For the undead one, there is a line, it's like, oh yeah, for any of them, it's like, you must respect legitimate authority. It goes like, I don't care if you're the president of the country, I've got oath against undead. You're a vampire. I don't care. So most times, like, unless it's like they're committing genocides, because then hierarchy, boom, yeah, no, you're allowing innocents to die, blah blah. It's got all these things. Like, so okay, that works out pretty well. And I like that. Like, there's like little small niche things going in there. It's all little bits and pieces. But we're coming on to over 50 minutes now, so I think I should exercise some long overdue self-restraint and wrap it up there. I think I will probably do a video shortly on Rat and Glory, talking a little bit about that one, because Pathfinder and 40k RPGs are always where most of my stuff was. Okay, thank you. I'll see you again.